nerds, what's up? Today I'm going to be talking about what SPFBO is all about and why you should support self-published authors. See you after the jump. I thought it would be a good time to get this video out there as our 6th annual SPFBO is coming to a close, most likely in April. So what even is SPFBO? Well, besides being an acronym that I've messed up so many times and had to refilm, it stands for Self-Published Fantasy Blog-Off and is a competition that was started by author Mark Lawrence. Mark Lawrence is a pretty famous fantasy author, and you may know him from the Broken Empire trilogy or the Red Queen's War or anything else that he has done. Starting in 2015, Mark Lawrence decided he really wanted to set something up to give more recognition to self-published authors, which is when he started the SPFBO. Basically, what he does is every year around May, starting from 2015 that is, he opens up submissions to his competition. His competition accepts the first 300 entries to the competition. The only requirements for entering is that your book has been self-published, it is a fantasy book, and it is either a standalone or the first in the series. Basically, it can't be a book that requires prior knowledge. Those are the only requirements, and otherwise you can enter, and as long as you're one of the first 300 people, you're into the competition. Then those 300 books are split up across 10 fantasy blogs. So 30 books are given to each of the participating blogs. Now these fantasy blogs are blogs that have been around for a while and are known as great fantasy review blogs. Most of them are a coalition between multiple reviewers, but occasionally some of them are just a single person. Either way, 30 books are given to each one of these to narrow down into semifinalists and ultimately a finalist. So semifinalist stage, the blogs can choose any number of books, usually between 3 and 10. Now, just because of the time constraint, usually this takes place over 4 or 5 months, and the sheer number of books, usually each blog won't actually finish all of the 30 books. Usually the blogs have some sort of DNF percentage, like we'll read at least 25% of all the books before DNFing ones we aren't interested in continuing, and then they'll kind of narrow it down. Usually their semifinalists are books that they have decided to move forward with and finish, so they can give them a rating and a review. Then from those semifinalists, each blog offers up a single book to put as their best book that they read of that year and to make it a finalist, giving us 10 finalists at the end of everything. Now, over a period of the next few months, these 10 finalists are read by every single blog. So each blog reads all 10 of the finalists that are put forward and gives the books a score between 1 and 10. These scores are averaged together to ultimately give us an SPFBO Ultimate Victor and a single book that wins the title. Past winners include The Thief Who Pulled on Trouble's Braids by Mike McClung, which is actually a book I've already read and reviewed previously. The Grey Bastards by Jonathan French. Where Loyalties Lie by Rob J. Hayes. Now, I haven't read this book of his, but I did read Never Die by him, which was a finalist in another SPFBO. Orconomics by J. Zachary Pike, and The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wong. Now, The Sword of Kaigan is probably one you've heard of before. It feels to be the darling of the self-published world. It is a super popular book. It always gets rave reviews. I have it on my shelf. I'm very excited to read it. But that just kind of shows you the caliber of the books that are winning these SPFBO competitions. What's also cool is a few of the winners, or at least finalists of the SPFBO, have gone on to be picked up by traditional publishers, including Jonathan French, Josiah Bancroft, and Devin Mattson. Now, this is a perfect time to get into SPFBO because the 2020 competition is coming to a close in April. Right now, all the blogs are putting in their scores for the 10 finalists that have been picked, and we should be getting a final winner sometime in April. This is also a good time to get involved because the new competition will be starting in May, which gives you plenty of time to open up your TBR to save room for those finalists and participate. This is really fun because a lot of people join in and try to read all 10 books along with the finalists, and it's just kind of a fun thing to be a part of, so it's a great time to jump into it now. Just as a quick rundown, the finalists this year for the 2020 SPFBO are The Last Memoria by Rachel Emma Shaw, The Combat Codes by Alexander Darwin, The Lost War by Justin Lee Anderson, Black Stone Heart by Michael R. Fletcher, Darkness Forged by Matt Larkin, Voice of War by Zach Argyle, The Fall of Erlon by Robert H. Fleming, A Wind from the Wilderness by Susanna Routry, Shadow of a Dead God by Patrick Samphire, and finally, Netherlight by Sean Paul Stevens. So you now may be asking, why should I invest in self-publishing? self-published authors versus traditionally published. Aren't self-published authors just people who couldn't make it traditionally because they weren't good enough, or they were bad at writing, or their stories weren't good? Basically, aren't the self-published authors rejects from traditional publishers? Well, yes and no. If we look at other industries, we find it very common to assume that the people who rise to the top aren't necessarily the most talented. I like to look at the music industry because I feel like we all kind of have experience with that. Like, we probably all know a super talented artist who tried to make it and who may be a better singer or a better songwriter than some of the people who are famous today, but they didn't. And that's because we know that so much more goes into being big or making it than just talent, right? There's usually a whole lot of luck, circumstance, perhaps wealth from where you came from, maybe appearance, maybe just a break, whatever it is. We can't always say that the people who have made it or are famous or have a record deal are necessarily the most talented people. And this can apply to the publishing industry as well, honestly. Publishers reject manuscripts for all sorts of reasons that may have nothing to do with quality. Maybe they're looking for a very specific type of book. Maybe they didn't like something random about your book. They don't take a lot to make a judgment about it. You're not even usually sending them a chapter even. Sometimes it's like as little as 100 words that they base it off of. That's pretty hard to sell your book in that little bit with just a query letter. There's a lot of reasons that you may fail in a traditionally publishing environment. And honestly, there's a lot of famous books that have. I mean, the story is very well known that Harry Potter was rejected 12 times before being picked up and then becoming a verifiable cash cow for that publisher. And we even have Dune, which was rejected an astonishing 20 times before being picked up and is now basically known as one of the fathers of modern science fiction. Just because something's rejected doesn't make it bad. Quality is in the eye of the beholder, and there may be plenty of other things that were rejected that could have been just as popular and just as nice if they had just been given the chance. We just don't know. Acquiring publishers also just takes a lot of time for an author. It can cost money if you try to get an agent. It can be exhausting and disheartening and difficult to sell yourself. And so it's no wonder with the advances of self-publishing recently that a lot of authors are just turning to it because it's easier and a faster way to get their works out into the public. In fact, some authors have gone from traditionally publishing their works to go back to self-publishing for a bunch of different reasons. Two people have done this are actually two authors I previously mentioned, Michael McClung and Robert J. Hayes, both who participated in the SPFBO. They picked up traditional publishers and were dissatisfied with the fact that there were so many uncontrollable delays in their works and also having to give over creative license of their works to somebody else and just lose control over that. And so they both decided to go back to self-publishing. I love what Mark Lawrence had to say about why he started SPFBO. I think it arose through a combination of survivor's guilt and the fact that I enjoy competitions. I always felt traditional publishing to be a lottery, and when I got big book deal, I never believed it to be because I was somehow head and shoulders better than all the others striving to be in the same place. I encountered a number of self-published authors after being published myself, and before being published, I interacted with many unpublished writers on critique forums, so I knew that the reservoir of top-class talent out there was huge. I also saw how hard it was for a book, regardless of quality, to somehow show itself above the noise barrier when so many titles are competing for attention. A brilliant book can fail utterly, but that same book, with even a modest publicity push, can take off. The SPFBO was just a small way of offering an extra chance, a way to find great books irrespective of the author's personal marketing skills and to bring them to a wider audience. It's also a method to filter some excellence from the sea of self-published offerings so that readers could feel more confidence when committing to them, which then steps toward giving self-published titles in general a better reputation and helps all of them engage new readers. But I also get it. There's that yes side too. Self-published books are a little bit less untested, maybe a little bit less edited, maybe a little bit less reviewed, so it can be a little scary jumping into self-published authors' works. That's what's so great about SPFBO for just the reasons that Mark Lawrence stated. This gives legitimacy to a lot of self-published works. By going through so many reviews, you can feel confident, like you know what you're getting into. It's gotten ratings from 10 super great fantasy review blogs and often a ton of people on Reddit and everyone on BookTube who's following along, so you know that you're getting into something quality. And like Mark Lawrence said, SPFBO kind of helps self-published books get over the hardest thing, which is just getting their works out there and marketing. Marketing costs a lot of money, and a lot of self-published authors just don't have the capital to do that like a traditional publishing house would. So this competition is a great way to get their works out there and have a lot of people reviewing it and giving confidence to readers to read them. So if you're trying to get started in the self-published community, look no further than SPFBO as a great way to start off your journey. And you also may be asking, like, well, what do you get out of supporting self-published authors? Well, first, you may be able to find a lot more content of the type that you like if you've already kind of exhausted traditionally published scenes. So, if you're a big fan of Joe Abercrombie and you want something more like him, maybe you can find a self-published author that's doing something similar. There's a lot of books out there, and there's a lot of kind of like niche tastes that you can get into. But beyond that, it's just a really fun community to be a part of. These self-published authors aren't big names, and so they're much more willing to engage with fans, and I personally think that's very fun, to be able to talk to the authors and really get invested in their works. And of course, the self-published authors, they love talking about their work. So there's kind of a fun back and forth there. You also have more opportunities to kind of get on a hype train, or maybe get an arc, or be a part of a cover reveal. Because the traditional publishing houses aren't doing that for them and they're running it all themselves, they're super happy to let fans and you participate in those sorts of journeys, which is something that I've really, really enjoyed, being able to be there with those authors as they try to pursue their dream. And as a booktuber myself, and I'm sure many of my subscribers may also be booktubers or Instagrammers or trying to write a book themselves, it's really fun to support other people trying to make a dream out of kind of the same thing that I want to. It's just kind of a cool community that has a lot of love in it and is a fun to be a part of. And finally, honestly, just some really good books. Like, these self-published authors are writing good things that I enjoy, and things that I'm not just reading because it's like, oh, I have to. Like, I enjoy them. So far, I haven't read a ton of self-published books. I've only read 5 or 6 because I'm pretty new on my journey. I just started kind of in the self-published community last year. But of all the books that I've read, the lowest rating I've given one is 3 stars, which is pretty much my average across regular, traditionally published books. So I feel like that's really good. They haven't fallen below, or I've not read anything that I hated. My favorite book I've read so far is Never Die by Rob J. Hayes, which was a finalist in one of the SPFBO competitions. So if you're looking for a place to start, you could start there. I will also link all of the reviews to the self-published books I've read in the description box below, so you can watch them and see if any of them sound good to you. I'll be releasing another review next week on a book that I just read that was also very good, so I'm pretty excited to bring that to you as well. Okay, let me know in the comments if you've been following along with SPFBO this year, or if you're planning on following along next year. I'm going to try to read probably most of the 10 finalists next year. I'm kind of bummed that I missed that this year. I had a little bit too much on my TBR, but next year I want to make specific space so that I can do that, because I think it'd be really fun to follow along. Let me know if you have a favorite self-published book or author that you have read. Put it in the comments below because I need more ideas. Or if you've never read a self-published book, maybe which book you're thinking of starting with. As always, if you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.